Okay, class, today we're going to continue discussing the work for Esma with Love and Squalor by J.D. Salinger. Did you guys all do your homework?
Yes, teacher.
So, what did you guys decide it was?
We think that he wrote it as a reflection.
And why do you guys argue that?
Well, reflection is a piece of writing about a personal experience of the author, an experience many people can relate to. One such experience is the obvious allusion to D-Day.
J.D. actually was part of the Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944. He had his first ever combat experience with the 4th Regiment.
Also, J.D. changes his writing style halfway through the work and begins to reference the narrator as Sergeant X. By stripping away the personal title, he allows more readers to picture themselves in the narrator's role and relate to his struggles.
That's why he also uses third-person point of view. By using the terms he, it, they within the text, he opens up the reader to put themselves in the narrator's shoes. This is seen when it is stated X had not cut his hair and he had only washed it 3 or 4 times during his 2 weeks stay at the hospital in Frankfurt.
The point of X staying in a hospital is important. Can you tell me why?
Well, JD was also checked into a hospital for combat stress or PTSD, like X. It is often credited as one source of JD's PTSD comes from D-Day, in which he was supposed to be part of the 12th Regiment, who were part of the first wave, but many ended up dying. JD got moved to the 4th Regiment last second and was part of the second wave. This allowed JD to remain unscratched, knowing his friends died, and he survived found a sense of guilt within him.
When J.D. got back to America, he always said he felt different, which he puts into the work by saying X was a young man who had not come through the war with all his facilities intact. Many of the millions of Americans returning from the war felt the same.
In fact, out of these millions, 1 in 2 returning World War II veterans experienced reported nightmares much like J.D. experienced, not only from D-Day, but from observing the beating of a Nazi collaborator.
JD is trying to tell others about the real problems veterans face every day with their PTSD. He speaks from personal experience about how terrible it is to see a friend die when he watched a friend die in the Battle of Hürtgen Forest in 1944. JD watched a friend die from shrapnel, and he speaks about his experience of the 7th most deadly battle by saying X drove a Jeep there before he's admitted to a hospital.
The use of situational irony is another way J.D. expresses his attitude towards the way the American population acts towards returning veterans. In the beginning of the story, the main character states, "I put all my belongings into my barrack bag, including a canvas gas mask container full of books." We as the readers know a gas mask is more helpful and important in war than books, but he values the books more.
Him choosing the books over the mask symbolizes how he craves the simplicity of a normal life, once again, over the supposed glory of war or the gas mask.
The American population glorifies the war and seems oblivious to the horrors the soldiers faced. The narrator picks up a letter from the brother that reads, "Now that the GD war is over, and you probably have a lot of time over there, how about sending the kids some bayonets or swastikas?" By having the brother not acting very sympathetic, JD shows how Americans thought the war was all great and the horrors experienced by the soldiers weren't existent.
JD's displeasure and the obliviousness that was experienced he puts in his other works, such as The Soft-Boiled Sergeant and The Last Day of the Last Furlough, which were written in 1944, and both express his disgust with the false idolization of combat.
JD wasn't just trying to scold America to their insensitive attitudes toward veterans. What else was he doing?
J.D. frequently expressed the beautiful nature of children in his works, and he does that again when the narrator describes Esme as about 13 with straight ash blonde hair of earlobe length, an exquisite forehead and blasé eyes. Her voice was distinctly separate from the other children's voices. J.D.'s use of imagery allows the readers to develop a picture of a very young girl that almost doesn't seem to belong in the war-torn area.
The child symbolizes innocence and how the ability to maintain that innocence is important to stay young. Esma had to grow up fast due to that war, something many other kids in Europe did. Over 14,000 kids were displaced without any family throughout Britain, which is where the narrator met Esma. Her loss to her innocence is something even she recognizes by saying, "My aunt says I'm a terribly cold person." Her losing her innocence parallels that of the narrator who lost his innocence that led to his mental collapse.
Another use of JD's symbolism is when he uses the large military watch Esma was given by her father. Her sending the watch to the narrator symbolizes her getting rid of her baggage and starting an attempt to help X. It symbolizes X regaining a small part of her innocence back.
We know he regained some of the peace that comes with innocence represented by the watch, because after months of restless sleep, suddenly, almost ecstatically, he felt sleepy.
So, for Esma with Love and Squalor is a reflection of not only JD's experiences, but he purposely broadens the scope of his work so more people can relate and use it as their own reflection.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Alright, very good analysis. Class dismissed.